On the day of his funeral, she clutches his suicide note. $50 billion a year. Sex, not love. It was love I was craving. Is there any way I can stop you? Is sex on the cards? Pantyhose? Love, not sex. Love, not sex. They named the people, city by city and town by town. Sex, not love. Erotic. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories podcast, the Sex series. Hey, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. Alright, welcome to the next episode in the Sex series. Right, from the last episodes, love hotels proving very popular so far. Loads of you have sent me brilliant pictures of, well, frankly, insane love hotels. Look on the Facebook page for some great pictures. Honestly, I keep looking at these images and I'm thinking, I have seriously under-decorated my bedroom. I mean, I'm thinking, let's redesign. I want some cages, I want some lights, I want some disco lights coming out of the wall. I want all those amazing things that they have in love hotels. Brilliant. So thanks for those. Okay, I'm moving on to a subject which, well, it's something that's happening right now and it's something I really want to know more about. Really want to get my head around it. It's happening across the world and it's a particular trend that's happening within sex. Now, it's not new. It's definitely not new. It's now got a kind of name, but I will just say it's definitely not new. So it wouldn't be the Sex series without looking at sex, drugs and rock and roll. Sex, drugs and rock and roll. That, I don't think it's an actual song. That was my own work there. It's great, wasn't it? Although, in this story, there's a little less rock and roll and just more sex and drugs. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. Alright, many of you listening are parents, and many of you will have grown-up kids. I don't have any kids, but I can only imagine that the most terrifying thing as a parent must be receiving a phone call from a hospital saying that your child has been brought in. Well, in 2017 in Brighton, just outside of London, this type of phone call happened for Father Graham Blower. Graham was the father of three 21-year-old triplet boys. He and his wife Barbara, they had 3 sons, all born at the same time. I mean, I would love 3 kids, but 3 born all at the one time. Wowzers. So, the 21-year-old triplet boys were Tom, Paddy, and Ian. So, of the 3 brothers, all born at the same time, Tom and Paddy, they were identical. Ian, the third brother, the third triplet, he wasn't identical. I was thinking about that going, I can't really tell if that would be a blessing or not. I don't know. It's a funny one because maybe if you're one of the triplets, you'd be like, I am so fucking glad I don't look like my other 2 brothers. Or on the flip side of that, maybe you'd feel a bit left out. You'd be like, oh, I'm raging, I don't look like them. I don't know. Who knows? So, when it comes to that phone call, the dad, Graham, he's told that one of his sons, Tom, is in intensive care. He's told that Tom has had an overdose. He has been resuscitated by paramedics at a party in Brighton, and that the family should come to the hospital as soon as possible. Now, how do you respond to that information? I mean, I don't know. How do you even process that information? I don't know. But Graham asks a question very quickly, and the question that Graham asks might not be on my lips instantly, or perhaps yours. He asks the doctor on the phone, what is Tom's score on the Glasgow coma scale? Now, that might seem like an odd question, but not really when you discover that Graham, Tom's father, is a doctor. So the doctor calling from the hospital informs Graham that the number on the scale is 3. And that's bad. Graham knows this is bad. Okay, let's talk about what the Glasgow coma scale is. Well, it is a system that's now used in almost every country in the world, and it's there to determine how severe a coma is and what the chances of survival for that person are. So, I mean, you can look it up. It basically breaks down eye movement, verbal responses, and motor responses. And what it does is it sort of puts it into a scale with numbers. So you have a number system for like eye movement, verbal responses, motor responses, and then you add all of these things up and you have a person on the coma scale. So it starts at 0 and it goes all the way up to 10. So you can put someone on that scale and know just how severe their coma is. And yeah, it was created in Glasgow University in 1974, and then it was just adopted around the world. I think it just goes by the letters GCS. See, that's the thing. See, Glaswegians do invent some pretty great stuff. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff come out of Glasgow. I'm just gonna be boring about Glasgow for a minute. I'm gonna give you 10 seconds. Yes, 10 seconds. Like it was a pub quiz. I'm gonna give you 10 seconds to think, what else has Glasgow invented or given to the world? Okay, you've got 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7. I'm going very fast. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and stop. Pens down. Okay, right. Well, what did you come up with? You'll have to shout because I can't actually hear you through the podcast. Now, did you say deep fried Mars bars or kilts? Because if you did, I may have to slap you. I may have to find you and slap you if that's what you came up with. Well, this is interesting because there's a few things I'll be honest, there's a few things I didn't know Glasgow invented. So, one of them is antiseptic. Yeah, there you go. 1800s, a Glaswegian man called Joseph Lister. I don't think that's like Listerine. I don't think that's like Listerine, but anyway, Joseph, he invented that. This one, cash machines. I didn't know that Glaswegians invented cash machines and like PIN codes for a card. Well, yeah, apparently in the 1960s. Fridges. Glasgow also invented fridges. Brilliant. The TV, I mean, of course, everyone knows Scotland invented the TV. This one I thought was interesting. Beta blockers. The Glaswegian doctor who invented beta blockers went on to win a Nobel? What the hell's a Nobel? Nobel Prize in Medicine in the 1980s. Also, ultrasounds. Another Glaswegian invention. And I'm coming to an end now, don't worry, this is not me just being boring on about Glaswegian inventions. This one is the best. The police. Yes. The very first police force in the world was created in Glasgow. And the other one, if you did like a random search for what did Glasgow invent, what did Scotland invent, you'll always find the Glasgow Coma Scale. Right, so I'm done boasting about Glasgow. But don't you dare go saying that Extraordinary Stories podcast isn't educational. So, back to the story. Graham has been told that his son Tom is at number 3 on the scale, and he knows that anything below 8 indicates that the person might be brain dead. So Graham's not at home at the moment when he receives the call, because as a doctor he works in various hospitals around England. So what he has to do is call his wife Barbara, and she is at home. He phones Barbara and he says Tom is in the hospital. He's in a coma and he's on a ventilator. Barbara says she can only remember hearing these words and then screaming. She says that she screamed and screamed and screamed. She paced up and down the family home, and then eventually she realised she needed to get into her car and she needed to drive to the hospital. She says she can't remember a single moment of that drive. She just knew she needed to get there. So, their son, Tom, is in a coma and they're desperately making their way to the hospital, but they're both separately thinking the same thing. What happened to their sons? One of the other triplets, Paddy, he had been battling drug problems for years. Paddy'd almost died, in fact, a couple of times from drugs, and he was a constant worry to his parents. Now, the family had been dealing with it. It was very open that Paddy had, at 21 years old, almost died a couple of times from drug overdoses. But now, Graham and Barbara are thinking, Tom, how are we in the situation where this has happened with Tom? They're wondering, how did he end up at a party? And how did he end up in an overdose situation? So, I mean, they're assuming, right, he's 21, he's gone out, he's done a bit of experimenting, he's probably just got involved in something and he's taken way too much. So they're thinking, right, he's maybe taken way too much cocaine, maybe it's been pills, Who knows what it's been? But when they get to the hospital, they're told by doctors it's a different type of drug entirely. It's GHB. GHB is a drug which comes in either powder or liquid form, and it goes by the nickname the sex drug. It gets described as a mix of alcohol and an ecstasy tablet. Wow, it's quite the mix. Quite the mix. So even though, right, Graham's a doctor, Barbara is a nurse, neither of them had heard of this drug. GHB, it's a huge problem at the moment. It's a drug that is ripping through clubs and bars across the world. Now, one of the scariest parts of it, one of the very scariest things, is that I said it comes in liquid form. And what that means is you have people injecting it into their body like they would heroin. And it's just a recreational drug. So what you have is, you have a lot of people who don't understand injecting drugs. I mean, yeah, maybe people who become addicted to heroin would say the same thing. Well, it starts recreational, and then you build up knowledge about how to inject it. But what you've basically got is people who don't understand about injecting drugs taking GHB. My God. In my day, I just said in my day, what am I, 107? Fucking hell. In my day, when I was young, yeah, there's always drugs going about, and I wasn't necessarily taking stuff, but I had friends who, they would take ecstasy, or they would take ketamine, the one that's the horse tranquilizer, but I just don't ever remember, unless I'm misremembering it, I just don't remember anybody in my group of friends, or that extended kind of world of people that I was going out with, ever injecting drugs. I just don't remember that being a thing. Now, why is it called the sex drug? Well, because it gets used at sex parties. Gatherings of people who want to get together with strangers, have sex, and they want to prolong that experience by using drugs. So, 21-year-old Tom lies in a bed with a breathing tube and hooked up to lots of different machines. When Graham and Barbara walk into the hospital ward, they are horrified to see just how close to death he looks, and he is barely hanging on. Barbara's first reaction is to shout at her son. She starts to shout at him in his coma, and she gets angry at him. At one point she says, "I wanted to raise my fist and slap him across the face." Doctors tell Graham and Barbara it doesn't look good for Tom. The overdose was enough to kill him, and it's a miracle that he was resuscitated at the scene. So, as well as the enormity of this that they're dealing with, Barbara and Graham, they have this other question hanging over them. How did this happen to Tom? Of the three triplets, it seemed unlikely that this would happen to Tom. Sad as it is for them to say, they're like, Paddy, yes, he struggled with drugs for years, and we can see that not that anyone would ever want to predict that for the child's future, but they were like, he's had so many problems with drugs that we could see Paddy in this situation, but not Tom. So, picture this. Graham and Barbara are looking at Tom wired up in the hospital when Ian, the other triplet, arrives. Now remember, Ian's the one who's non-identical. And they say to him, it looks like your brother's not going to survive. And he comes in to see Tom. And of course he's absolutely shocked to see his brother in this state. And Ian looks at Tom. He looks closely. He steps back. And he looks again. And then he says to his mum and dad, "That's not Tom. That's Paddy." Now Graham and Barbara are completely shocked. And at first they think Ian's wrong. He's just confused. He's just in the shock of everything. He's got confused. And Ian says adamantly, "That isn't Tom, it's Paddy." I just think that's such a weird thing where it's like, obviously as a parent of triplets, they're all completely individual people. And of course, as a parent of triplets, you know all the differences that your kids have, all the different markings on their body and the things that make them all different. But maybe in that moment, in that panic, in that just being told this is Tom in the bed, this is what it is, they just accepted that. It's so interesting that actually it's one of the other triplets, and they will know each other so intimately and so well that it takes the other triplet to go, that's not the brother that we think this is in the bed. So how can that be? How can it be that the hospital think this is Tom? Well, because Tom and Paddy were identical, they often would swap different identification documents. So if one of them was going out for a night out and they needed a bit of ID, one of them would give the other one the driving license because, well, they looked the same, so it didn't matter. They would share passports. Because they were identical, Ian not being identical, they were able to sort of get away with that. They just, they went through their life just kind of swapping different documents and different things. Barbara and Graham are still not sure, they're not convinced, but it does make sense to them because they're thinking, this would be Paddy. He would take an overdose, and that's why Tom maybe feels like such a shock. So Ian immediately leaves the hospital. Thinking that he's absolutely right, he gets a taxi to Tom's address. He knocks on the door, and who opens the door? Tom. Tom's having a quiet night in. He has no idea at this point what is happening. Ian explains Paddy has had an overdose, he's in a bad way, and we need to get to the hospital as soon as we can. So Graham and Barbara now realise it's true. This is Paddy in a coma. So although they were identical in look, Tom and Paddy were very different. Tom was really into his studies at university, quite settled. Paddy, as I said, lots of drug issues, lots of problems. And another big difference between them, and perhaps a clue to why Paddy has ended up here, is that Tom was straight and Paddy was gay. Paddy had struggled for years with his sexuality. He'd struggled with depression, mental health issues, and the majority of it was related to the fact that he was gay. Now the family are completely supportive of Paddy's sexuality. In fact, Paddy had a boyfriend called Will, and the family knew him. They welcomed him into the family, but it was Paddy himself who had problems with his sexuality, and drugs were the way to cope. His boyfriend Will, he was called to come to the hospital he hadn't been with Paddy when the overdose occurred, but Graham had made the call to Will to say, look, this is the situation, it's not looking good, you need to get here as soon as you can. So let's just talk about where and when this drug overdose occurred, and I guess why it occurred. So, as I said earlier, the drug was GHB, the sex drug. And when Graham and Barbara chat with police, they learn a lot more about it. The drug is very, very popular among gay men and among something called slam parties. Now, when I said in the beginning that I wanted to do this story because it's happening right now, well, it's because it's happening to friends of mine at the moment. Right, I'm nothing if not honest, right? And honest I will be. I have friends who use dating apps, sex apps to hook up, meet with people. Fine, absolutely fine. No judgment whatsoever. And so usually, that'll just be like a one-off kind of thing. Sometimes they get involved in threesomes. Yeah, fine, right. Do you live your life. Do what you need to do. But about 6 months ago, one of my friends said to me, and when I'm saying one of my friends, believe me, I'm not doing the asking for a friend thing. This is definitely a friend. Let's not call him Harry Benderson. He said, oh my God, Barry, I got invited to a slam party. And I was like, a what? Sorry, what? He's like, a slam party. Slamming. Again, what? I mean, he's saying the word slam to me. I'm thinking basketball. Like, as in slam dunk. As in slam dunk the funk. I'm like, what are you talking about? But slamming is now the term for a party where people get together for sex and they take a high volume of drugs. So it's like I said earlier, this is not new. Like people throughout history have got together, had orgies with drugs and alcohol, and it's not new. But the difference is within, and I mean largely, not exclusively, but largely the gay community, there's a huge number of these parties happening where guys are attending, they're injecting GHB, they're having sex with strangers in a group situation, which is absolutely fine. If that's what you want to do it. But the danger is that people are walking into it and they don't really know what they're getting into. Now, in the spirit of not being called out for it, I'm in full support. You do what you need to do. But these so-called chemsex parties, they're becoming normal, and it just concerns me, right? And this is coming from a personal place. It concerns me that I've got friends who are using dating apps, and one of the first questions that anyone will ask them is, do you slam? I mean, I'm liberal, maybe too liberal about sex. Do what you need to do. But these parties do alarm me because I worry that vulnerable people are walking into them not really knowing what they're getting into. I mean, right, people can be talked into all sorts when they're horny. I mean, horny and drunk, that's even worse. Horny, drunk, and then injected with GHB, well, that's a really, really worrying place. I mean, I suppose a good question would be, well, why does it need to involve drugs? Why could it not just be lots of people who'd taken alcohol? Well, those who do it, and there are people who do it and will say it's the best thing ever. I love it. I do it every weekend. I spend 48 hours at the same party. I just take drugs and then I sleep it off and then I wake back up and I do more. That's fine. If that's how you want to live your life, fine. They say it's performance enhancing. It's relaxing. It means that you can step into a room full of naked strangers and you feel great. You can't wait to have sex. Again, group sex, not against it. I just worry about people going into it under the influence of something that they're not really aware of how much of an effect it's having on them. Ironically, and this is ironic, the GHB injections lead to not only all of those feelings of relaxations and the feelings of being on a drug, but they also lead to, well, for want of a better way to put it, not being able to get it up. So then, Viagra has to get introduced into the mix of things being taken. Well, this is exactly what had happened to Paddy. Paddy had gone to a slam party. He had injected GHB. He had a good time at the party. He then injected more GHB, and that's what caused his overdose. One of the party members watched Paddy collapse to the floor. It raised serious alarm for everyone at the party. This guy was overdosing. So an ambulance was called, and while other people at the party ran around throwing their clothes on or leaving the scene, the paramedics managed to resuscitate Paddy on the living room floor. So Barbara and Graham, right, they're now given all of this information, and they've never heard of slamming or slam parties, but here they are with Paddy in a coma. Tom describes arriving at the hospital to see his brother, and he says, "As I came through the doors, I saw his feet. As soon as I saw them, I froze. I couldn't look at his face straight away. I just couldn't. I had to work my way up his body. I saw his feet. I went to his knees, to his waist, and then I saw his chest on a ventilator, a machine, a robotic thing. Then I saw his face. His head was turned to the side, his jaw was down, and his eyes were shut. He looked pale as fuck. He was swollen. He looked like he'd already died. It was the weirdest thing for me, because he looked just like me. And then I felt myself blacking out. Two days pass. The family just pace up and down the hospital ward beside Paddy's bed, hoping, praying for some kind of improvement. So doctors come and they say they're going to see if they can take him off of the ventilator. They're going to see if Paddy can breathe on his own. So they do. And to their surprise, he begins to breathe on his own. The family are still calling his boyfriend Will and saying, "Get here as fast as you can. Paddy is breathing on his own." His dad, Graham, will remember that the other two sons and him, they stand over Paddy's bed and, love this, they start saying, "This fucking prick, he's doing a Paddy. He's scaring us all to death, and then now he's breathing on his own, and he's going to be fine, but when he comes out of this, we need to kick his fucking arse when he comes out of this for what he's put us through." But the family's celebration was short-lived. Hours after being off the ventilator, Paddy's heart rate begins to cause real concern. So he's breathing on his own, but his heart rate has begun to skyrocket. It was beating unnaturally fast, and doctors, they just couldn't slow it down. So doctors start to work hard on Paddy. The family are told to prepare themselves that he might not make it. And with his two brothers holding a hand each, and his mum and dad standing by his side, Paddy's heart rate begins to drop. His brother Ian begins to recite the numbers on the heart monitor as they start to fall. 50, 45, 40, 35. It falls to 5, then to 3, then to 1, then to 0. Paddy's body eventually loses the fight, and he dies surrounded by his family. His boyfriend Will never made it to the hospital in time to see him before he died. The following day, Graham and Barbara, they are washing Paddy's body in preparation for his burial. His brother Ian, he starts to take photographs of Paddy's dead body, and he says he doesn't know why. He felt like it would be important to do that. Now, here's the thing. There will be a million, sadly, and as horrible as that is, there's going to be a million stories of young people who've gone to a party, taken something, and it's ended really badly. But here's the thing that I think makes it interesting, is that Graham and Barbara, in their grief, their absolute devastation at losing Paddy, they start to look into this world of slam parties, and they ask, how did their son end up there, and what are these drugs that are going around? They talk with police, and police tell them that there have been, I was so fucking shocked by this, there have been 317 deaths in 2017 alone in the UK from slam parties where people have overdosed. I mean, 317 fucking people have gone to a sex party and ended up dead. They find that then there's lots of other drugs involved. There's crystal meth going about, but then, well, that's been big on the gay scene for years. I mean, crystal meth's like fucking, it's like a bottle of water now. But now GHB's come along and people are just taking it freely. And this is where I sort of love Graham and Barbara. I think it's great. They don't hide Paddy's death, as difficult as it is for them to talk about. They talk to anyone who will listen about how their son died. Yes, he might have died at a sex party, but the fact he was taking a drug given to him in doses that he didn't understand and the people administering it didn't understand, they want to talk about that. Days after his death, Barbara and Graham, they managed to get hold of Paddy's phone. They wanted to see if there was anything on it that could give them a clearer picture of what led up to that evening. So they managed to get into his phone, they managed to guess the password. Graham says, I can't talk about this in front of Barbara. She gets very upset. But the text messages on Paddy's phone show that he had been chatting to a stranger that night. They were swapping nude pictures, and then the stranger invited Paddy to slam, and then provided the address of the party, promising plenty of guys to fuck. And that was the last message in Paddy's phone. Graham says, I know it's hard to talk about, but I'm not going to be ashamed of Paddy. He died in a horrible way, but my son made a choice based on sex and drugs, and I can't be angry at him for that choice. Sex does that to people. And when you're young and you're chasing more and you're chasing excitement, a chemsex party probably feels like a dream come true. Graham, Barbara, Ian and Tom, they've struggled greatly in their grief. They've gone from a family of 5 to a family of 4, and they're all in their own way dealing with Paddy's death. But it hasn't stopped Graham and Barbara campaigning for the drug GHB to be made much more difficult to access. So they continue to campaign. Ian and Tom, they find it hard to talk about it, but they support their parents in their campaign. The details from the inquest into Paddy's death and the story that his body can tell about that night are not something that Graham wants to discuss. Graham says, "I don't want my son's story to stop anyone going out there and grabbing life. Go to the parties you want to go to, live your life, but I don't want any family to find themselves in the position that we found ourselves in. I don't want any person to be as vulnerable or as uninformed as Paddy was." He ends by saying, "Sex and drugs have always existed, but I want people to be careful. No one should die at a sex party like my Paddy." And so ends the story. Alright then, well, yeah, tough, it's tough, it's a hard story. It's hard, and sorry to sound like I keep rattling on about the same bloody thing over and over again. I think it's just, I think it's a concern for me. I'm not going to go over the old ground, but it's that thing of going, I've got people in my life who are going, oh, I've been invited to a slam party. Oh, you know what I mean? And it does cause me a lot of concern, it does cause me a lot of worry. I just also think it's worth talking about. I fully support Graham and Barbara in their campaign to make it something that people need to know about and talk about. Because, we're just going to end up with more deaths if we don't actually fucking do something about it. And actually, and maybe talking about it and telling stories is the best way to do that. So, okay, I know that wasn't the most uplifting of stories, and sometimes I like to tell very uplifting, but it can't all be glitter and sunshine and Madonna songs. Although how great would it be if life was, my life's just glitter and sunshine and Madonna songs. Yeah, I think I would be a drag queen at that point if that was the case. Okay, right, so if you want to get in touch, please do. Join the Facebook group. I know I say it all the time. I'm so bored of myself saying it, but you will not be bored if you join that group because it's just fucking amazing. It's growing so quickly. It's just brilliant. If you've never liked the Facebook page, please do that. And I'll tell you the reason I'm asking you to do that is because, I'll be honest, I sort of neglect the page a little bit. I never really think about the page much. And then I just happened to look at it the other day and I was like, oh wow, there's not very many people like the page, which if you were looking up Extraordinary Stories Podcast, you'd think, oh, must be a bit shit, because there's hardly anyone that likes that page, because it's the first thing you come to. So do me a favour, head on over, press the wee like button, give it a like. It won't make me look like the loser of the podcast world. Some bloody podcast Facebook pages have got 14,000 people. I think there's about 100 people that like the page at the moment. So yeah, head on over, give it a click. So I've got one more episode to go in the sex series, and that's coming very soon. Okay, so want to get in touch? Just do it. Just find me. Just talk to me. If I don't get back to you instantly, I promise I will get back to you. I get a lot of messages, and I please don't ever stop sending me messages and stories and thoughts and feelings. Keep it going, because I love it. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope that you maybe... I don't know, actually. I was going to say something. Again, I had one of those moments where I'm going to say something really profound, and then I never said anything. So, anyway, I'm going to stop babbling on. I'm out of here, okay? Goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.
Sex, drug, and rock and roll. Oh, it's definitely... I really feel it like there's a hit song in here somewhere. I just need to... let me try again. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And it's all you need in this world. Life, it's a thing that everyone loves. Do you know what I need? I need a lyricist. I need someone to write me lyrics. Let me try again. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean, if the chorus is nailed, I've got the chorus. I just need the rest. So if you've got any lyrics, please send them my way, and I'll get into my recording studio, and I'll start singing this song and like make it into the hit that it needs to be.
Let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.